welcome to Do the Right Thing, your weekly writing prompt podcast. I'm Matthias.
And I'm Jarvis.
Jarvis and I are English majors, and we just started classes again, and so we are very, very busy.
So we issue a challenge to sit down each week and write a complete short story using 3 of 4 randomly generated words.
And then sometimes we come on the podcast, we read the story, we talk about what we learned in writing it, but we always talk about the listener-submitted stories.
Exactly. We're simply here to help you do the right thing.
A Doof Media
Production.
Nice. So there's been a slight alteration here in the intro because, as I just mentioned, we just started classes this last week, and so we're a little
They've been quite difficult.
Swamped. I know Jarvis is writing a lot for his classes, and so we figured that now would be as good a time as any to start experimenting with this other form of the podcast in which we don't read the story that we wrote this week because we didn't write one this week because we were busy. But we do, and we always will, as long as Do the Right Thing exists, we will always talk about the listener-submitted stories because that's the most important part. And we want to give you all the attention you deserve and the praise y'all deserve. And that's what we like to see. We like to see y'all writing stories. So
exactly. And of course, that doesn't mean that we won't write any story ever. Mm-hmm. It just means that on some weeks, we might be coming to the table without a story, whether it be a very busy week. I know at least on my plate, it's very heavy when it comes to reading and writing. I think this week alone, I've already submitted a multi-page essay, and that's just the first week. So of course, it's going to be a lot thicker going down the road. So all that to say that on some weeks we will definitely come with a story, but others we might not. But no matter what, we will always have a fantastic conversation about writing, and of course talk about your wonderful stories that you do submit.
Yeah. We always want to give y'all the recognition y'all deserve, and that's the one thing that I really, really don't want to see go away and Do the Right Thing is y'all's stories because they're so good, and it was really important to me with so-called writers, and I'm really, really happy to be providing that for other people. So
this week's words were temptation, hover, bear, and fault. And I know that you didn't write a story this week, Matthias, but if you did, what words would you have chosen?
I think I would want to follow the trend in our comments, in our submitted stories, the section of using the word bear. Yeah. I think temptation and fault would be a good combination. Just some kind of tempting bear that is at fault for something, I think would have been the trend I would have gone in. But yeah, I noticed a lot in the submitted stories that we got this week. There was a lot of bears, which is really fun to read. I think there was definitely a trend in the stories this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like almost all of them were bear themed. Almost all of them focus on some sort of bear. Some even made bears supernatural creatures, which I thought was really cool. So, I am very excited to talk about them.
Okay.
Exactly. So, in the slight absence of there being a story this week, we will be talking about certain motifs within writing. Specifically this week, I think we're going to talk about the small details and how those can be used to build tension throughout a story, whether it be horror, drama, or romance.
Yeah, but specifically the concept of using those little details to signal things that are much more important than just that little, like, a lot of times we say just to add in details to make something feel like more vivid and stuff like that, but that's actually one of the least important reasons to add in details. Usually details can inform a lot more than just like a scene. I mean, they always do inherently. And the trick is just making sure that those other things that it informs are actually important and flow with what you're trying to make happen in a story.
Exactly. Like, for instance, recently I've been reading a lot of the Maltese Falcon, and the way that it is written is very light on a lot of details. The way that is written is very point by point. This happens, this happens, this happens. But when the details are used, it tells you so much more about how you're supposed to feel about this scene. Like, there's a scene specifically where a character shows up that you're very used to us seeing. They're basically one of the main characters, but their shoes are very muddy. And throughout that whole moment, there is heavy focus on those shoes. And that is being used to basically inform us that we shouldn't fully trust what this person is saying. So just small things like that, especially when it comes to a mystery, basically informs us on a new way to look at this character. And not to spoil the actual story, but this character with muddy shoes, of course, was up to no good.
So, for those who don't know, The Maltese Falcon, I'm pretty sure is the first detective novel, basically.
Yeah, it is. It is the first one. It is the most widely. It's the most widely acclaimed one, as not only being one of the first detective novels, but also kind of establishing the genre of noir.
Okay. Right. So it's more like a noir. It's not like. Was like Sherlock before it? I think so, right? Yeah. Okay.
So I mean that would definitely be the first like, detective novel. Now I will say that the Maltese Falcon was one of the first big ones to happen here in the Americas,
right?
Which definitely kind of formed a lot of how those sort of noir or detective books and also TV and film were kind of constructed for years and decades to come, even to now. When it comes to neo noir, a lot of the motifs have carried over from that book.
Yeah. And a side note, not that it's noir. I saw Knives Out recently. It's very good. It's really good.
I really
had a good time.
dig that film. Mostly because it had the same thing going for it as in Murder on the Orient Express, but with Knives Out, it has like a far better tone to it, and it's not taking itself horribly serious to the point to where it's a enjoyable film. Because I feel for me that was the downfall of the Murder on the Orient Express. Like, yes, it is taking itself serious, but when you find out how the murder happened, they tried to make it like this beautiful sort of crescendo of emotions and revenge and relief, to where me as a audience just kind of found it pretentious in a sense.
I think so too. Back to detail. So stuff about how a character is described, it can contradict stuff that they say or be used to accentuate it, right? Are people tired? Are people panting? Did they just come in from a run? That kind of thing. But it can also do a lot more for the tone, and especially of if you're using some kind of character influence narration, it can tell you a lot about the character. Like, why is the character noticing this thing? And how does that reflect both on the environment, the setting, but also that main narration character, right? How much time do they pay attention to the blood, right? Or is there a lot of blood in the scene but they don't actually care about it? Or basically, what do they notice and what do they not pay as much attention about?
Exactly. And I think one major thing that I've seen used in a lot of different novels and just art in general is this idea that the things that you leave out can be more purposeful than the things that you add in. And I mean, going off of the same idea of what a character focuses on, like if a detective comes in to a crime scene, but he doesn't talk about the blood or the murder weapon, he talks about the victim's feet. Well, that tells you so much about this main character, and it also tells you a lot about who this victim is just by the focus on their feet and nothing else. And of course, that will then go into what the tone of the story is and certain things that will be revealed later on down the... when it comes to adding any sort of detail, it's this very careful game that a lot of great writers do, where they are balancing between giving us enough to inform us going forward without bogging us down with that, and keeping the key things, the things that will surprise us overall, hidden, so that they can be used at the appropriate time.
Yeah, now I'm trying to think of a detective that pays a lot of attention to feet, and what that all means.
Maybe Sherlock Holmes. I haven't read all of his of those novels. I've read about half of them, but Sherlock does tend to focus on very peculiar things.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it would tell you that they're ignoring the obvious and they're finding other things. So some other things that's really good for setups is to you put in a lot of details, but not like you put in a lot of details so that the really important ones, the ones that will be pivotal later on to understanding something, or to foreshadowing something that like you plant the idea in the back of their mind, but not enough to make them know what's going to happen. Is by bearing in a bunch of other details so you don't know which one is like the most important thing. But in the end, it's kind of like all are supposed to be important. Everything should serve multiple purposes, even if that's just like building tone and also character at the same time. But setting things up as well is even better.
Exactly. I mean, really, it's going off of the same concept of Chekhov's gun, right? Is that if you show something, the assumption of the audience is that will come in that will come into play later. If you show a gun or a knife, odds are that it will be used. And of course, again, it is a very careful game that a writer does play when it comes to coming up with these certain scenes and these details. Because I think one major issue that could possibly come from a amateur writer such as ourselves is to put in too much detail to where the audience doesn't know exactly what to focus on, exactly what is important. So again, it is giving them enough to where that they know what to expect going forward without bogging them down with those details. Basically, you just have to use them sparingly.
Sure. So on providing too much detail, I think you can get away with a lot if that's like your style. I mean, that a Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire is written with a lot of details about things that don't really feel like they matter sometimes, like, descriptions of food or whatever. But that does inform you on like what is the tone of this particular dinner or whatever. And are characters enjoying themselves, that kind of thing, and what does that imply? I mean, often it's set up for some terrible betrayal that's going to happen later on, right?
Exactly. And also, one of the dangers is to try your best not to go Lovecraft with it, right?
Well, I mean, you can go Lovecraft if you want to go Lovecraft, is the thing. You want all your Lovecraft stuff to also be like important.
Because I think, like, I love Lovecraft, regardless of his personal views. I love the kind of worlds that he is able to build with this. But, of course, even though I do have that love for the art that he has created, of course, there are very crucial issues with how you will read pages of any one of his stories and you're going nowhere. Right, and he's just giving you all of this, I guess, well written description, but it's not pushing the story forward. I think the most important thing we kind of have to focus on as sort of amateur writers is that whatever we do put down on that page should serve the purpose of pushing this story forward. Whether giving us more about this main character or giving us bits about where this story is really going. That is the most crucial crux that I have when it comes to writing, is getting caught up in this one moment, getting caught up in this one scene to where you're adding so much detail to the point to where none of it really matters in a sense. And that is the job of the writer, to tell the audience what does matter.
There's a bunch of different trains of thought regarding how to best use detail and like what is the purpose of it. I'm trying to find out the exact term for the more minimalist style. I don't think the term is actually minimalism, but the kind of style that like Hemingway uses, where It's very
Yes.
simple. The only things that are mentioned are the bare bones for you to understand what's going on. Putting a story down to its most base features. That is one way to do it, and I think it's definitely worth like trying and emulating. I think especially now the swing in the other direction is not as enjoyed as much, that over description, because right now our attention spans are lower, and we for the most part really do only want to see the most important details. I mean, if you go back and read The Lord of the Rings right now, you might have a little bit of difficulty because there's a lot of just like descriptions of just traveling and stuff. I think there's times where you can like let things breathe more. But no matter what, even those details where you do go above and beyond, they should be serving some dual purpose other than just like you should never write something just because like that's how it is in your head, you know? Like why is it being in your head probably has some other reasons behind it already. But like if you have a knight show up and you describe the exact details of like what the like figure on the breastplate looks like or whatever, or what a flag looks like exactly, unless if each of those specific, like if we describe a flag, right, we can describe it as just like a green flag, or we can say a green flag with a dragon in the middle, or we can go on and go a green flag with a dragon in the middle surrounded by a shield that's split into 4 parts with a fleur-de-lis in the upper left and a crown in the bottom right and whatever. And you can go on. And if you do the last one, readers, of course, are going to assume that every single one of those things is actually like important and means something significant that is going to be relevant. The crown means it's royal house. The fleur-de-lis it means something else. And those things are going to come up. But if they don't come up, Knight gets killed in the next, page. It's all. Yeah. It was not worth it at all to describe that. You could have just said a flag with a dragon on it or whatever.
And I mean, of course, we are not telling you not to do these things. We are just saying to be cautious about adding too much detail on things that don't matter. I mean, not to, of course, go back to the age-old conversation, but we are postmodern or like whatever, and almost every other movement within the literary world over the last, let's say, 100 years was focusing more and more on the simplicity of things and basically writing something to where the common person could understand it and kind of finding a relation with that person in the most basic means of expression.
Yeah, I think that's actually like that idea of simplifying things down and making communicating a story in the most efficient and like effective way. I think it's actually a very modernist. I think it belongs within that trend of modernism. Modernism was very much like there are objective good things. Some of them are like efficiency and maximizing utility and other stuff like that. And I think postmodern is basically going, none of that matters. Actually, annoying your audience is just as valid as making them entertained or making them cry or whatever. And then just like breaking mediums and stuff like that. So
exactly. I mean, I think that is the golden ticket of right now, is that we are in a place to where, yeah, if you do want to add a mountain of description, you can do that. Because of course, right now, the best thing you could possibly do is try and push the bounds of your writing, try and push exactly what it is. I think the best thing for us as up and coming, I guess, or amateur writers is to experiment with those things. Not only is it your own spin on the form, but it can also draw eyes, in a sense. But of course, even if you are experimenting with something that is well established, you have to make sure that it is effective. That what you are writing isn't just to provoke people, but to get to a means to an end.
Yeah. Is there anything else we want to talk about regarding details specifically?
No, I think we kind of just talked around the topic pretty well. I think right now, though, it's a perfect time to just kind of cruise into our listener-submitted story section.
So on this last section that we just did, if any of y'all were like, wow, that was really annoying, or whatever else, or if you have any topics you want us to talk about, or any other suggestions, please let us know in a discussion thread or in an email. We would love to hear your feedback.
Exactamundo. So, of course, we're going to go on into our listener submitted story sections, which means we are going to spoil all of the stories we are about to talk about. So, if you haven't read them, I would say wait till we actually announce them, then pause, go read them, and come on back here so we can talk about them with you. So, the stories for this week are by Captain Rhino, Ace of Sword, Kamikaze Tomato, Sensei Sama Sensei, and Stop Stealing My Gmail.
That's right. All right, let's get into them. Who's first?
So the first story is by Ace of Sword with Unseen Depths,
which is a sequel to an entry that they I think in episode 47, titled Still Water. So just to sum up that one real quick, we had this is a world in which concepts, specifically like emotions, can be personified into monsters. And this one town is now being plagued by a monster in a lake made of bloodlust, and therefore it kills people, because of course it does.
Delicious.
So our main character, Kayla, she is standing on a hill, basically preparing for the fight. In our last entry, the village has decided to use themselves as bait for the bloodlust to come out. And she's sitting on a hill with a rifle, and she's getting ready to fight it. And so the bloodlust monster comes out. It has endless arms and mouths, and it's really horrible. And Kayla's having trouble facing it off because it has no weak points. It's just a bunch of arms and stuff. And so she's trying really hard to find those weak points. She's able to find an eye and shoot that. But not before like one or two people of the village get pulled apart by bloodlust. It's actually it's described in a way where it's like, clearly there are horrible things going on, but we're not like going to look directly at it, you know? Like someone's getting pulled apart in the background, but like we don't necessarily look at the limb coming off of the body. But it's charging closer. There's this, and her gun jams before she can like fully take it down. She pulls out her other gun, but she's safe because this other guy comes in with a pitchfork and is able to distract it. I mean, he dies too, which was very tragic to me. I was like, oh, they're gonna be friends. No, they're not. He's dead. Then she's able to finally find another eye and able to crush it using her gun, and then she shoots it. We don't see the exact ending of actually seeing it like fully die, but we kind of understand that she probably made it out okay.
Exactly. So I think this story has fantastic action. I think through and through, I was really like, this story did such a great job of putting me right there in the face of this horrible beast. And I think description was used here very well in how they describe the just ferocity of this beast, the bloodlust of this bloodlust beast. And just by reading this, I got like a lot of Bloodborne vibes, in a sense, just in the description of this monster. And I think throughout, the thing that like really does take the front stage is this action. I think it's really well done and really well written, and it does a fantastic job of taking us through how the villagers and even Kayla are trying to combat this beast. So yeah, really great entry.
Yeah, I think what's good about it is that it takes the time to do one thing at a time, focusing on, we look at the creature and what it's doing before we go back to Kayla and her situation with the gun jamming or not having enough bullets. And those are separated enough that we don't get them confused flowing back and forth.
Mm-hmm. So thank you very much, Ace of Sword. And next up is by Stop Stealing My Gmail with They Come in Terra.
With an author's name of A.L. Michelle, or Mitchell, I'm not entirely sure. So we have our character here, Martha, who's behind a coffee shop, and it's late at night, and she's looking for this dumpster cat, which she normally feeds before she goes home.
Wilhelm.
Yeah, named Wilhelm, which is a great name for a dumpster cat. Also, I just like saying dumpster cat.
Honestly, that sounds like a really awesome like post-punk band.
That's very true. So she's trying to see the cat. Normally the cat comes out at this time, but he's not coming out for some reason, and so she's starting to feel a little creepy. There's some rustling in the forest. There's a lot of lights are out now. It's pretty dark. She pulls out her phone with her flashlight and is looking around, but doesn't see anything. But she's getting like a sort of like prey signal saying that like something is wrong. She's being watched or something. She tries to go back inside, but it turns out that the door like locked on accident, as it is wont to do. And now she's got to call someone to get her, but she's still afraid. Something comes out. There's more rustling in the wood. She spots the cat and it's dead. At the end of the forest right there. And then there's a monster standing over it with an unusually large head, a tall, slender body, blood dripping from a thin mouth. It's really horrible. She feels like she can't move, and we see it walking towards her, and that's the last sentence we get there.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, this story does a fantastic job of building this tension. I mean, already we start off in a very eerie place, out back, late, next to a dumpster, and we are first met with nothing but good intentions, which I really like. How in the beginning there is no kind of tale telling us that it would get so dire and eerie, but as we go on through the story, we are picking up on these subtle details. It is cold. This main character is next to this forest. There are rustles in the woods, and all of these small things are used to completely shift the tone. And then as soon as we see this dead cat, well, of course we automatically know what is going to happen, that there is a beast lurking somewhere. So yeah, I just think this story does a really great job at setting up that tension and really bringing us through it to a point to where we know she's going to die, and it's sad. And yeah, I just really love the sort of small journey that the story takes us on, and I think it's very well written. So really great job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like how we start to like our main character Martha immediately because she's doing a nice thing for a little cat. If I am going to do a little critique, is the monster. I feel like the description we got was like horrifying enough, but I feel like because Martha's able to look directly at it, that it could have warranted a longer description, because I feel like she got a good enough look at it that we could have got more details. You know, maybe it's like hairless, or maybe it's like that really gross in between where it's like it's got like some hairs but not many, or it's scaled, or
but it's like patchy.
Yeah, or if the head is like what shape is this unusually large head, right? Is it like a human head? Is it more like a balloon shaped with like a face like flat on it? You know, there's just some more horrifying things. On the other hand, if specifically she can't really see the details, you can only see like the silhouette and maybe like eyes and that mouth. That's a different thing. But yeah, it just seemed to me that she could see more than we could see.
Yeah, I mean, within my reading, I was kind of under the assumption that all this was happening under the cover of night, which for me, I thought that's why we didn't get like such deep of a description of this beast. But I think probably stating that or you know, as you said, pick one or the other. Is this beast hidden, or is it in broad daylight? And if this main character can see this creature, well then yeah, I would love a full rundown of what this SCP-S creature really is. So yeah, but overall, really great job, and I really loved the tension that was being built here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Well, all right. Up next is by Sensei Sama Senpai with Teddy.
So this is one of the really humorous stories, but also really horrifying at the same time. It runs this middle ground where I was feeling both like this is ridiculous, but also like kind of uncomfortable. So
yeah,
we open up in a kind of ridiculous place at the beginning with our main character saying it's all that fucking bear's fault, and they're sobbing to Jimmy. Because they were drunk, but everything has fallen apart in their life recently. So first, the first thing that happened is that they just saw a bear inside their house, just staring at them, a huge black bear, and it's saying, "I want Honey's life." Honey, as in like the plural, Honey's life, before it left. And then in the wake of that, they were fired from their job, and then, as they were leaving, they saw the bear again in a suit and tie, coming in for a job. And our main character asked people, "Do you see the freaking bear over there?" And they were just like, "Oh yeah, that's just Teddy. He is kind of large. He's I don't know if a bear is really the right term." And so this Teddy is kind of like replacing him on his job. And then when he asked the bear, why is he doing this? Teddy says, or the bear anyway, "I want Honey's life again." So it's just now, it sounds so weird, but it's getting kind of ominous at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then our main character, George, gets cancer. So that's not good. And then on the way home, they go to pick up their daughter, and their daughter has made a new friend named Teddy. So that's also concerning. And then our final scene is that he goes home, and in the bed, in their bed, his wife Mary says, "Honey, this isn't. I could explain." And then the bear says, "I have Honey's life now," which is it's because the bear is fucking his wife, which is very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable.
Very. I mean, honestly, this story, as you said, toes this line between being comical and very eerie. I know at the very end, I was cracking up, but also had this feeling of, oh no, right? Because we like walk through this man's recent days, and just see how it's kind of fallen apart. While his friend is saying, well, could it be the cancer? And then they never really spoke anymore about that. I think, honestly, overall, I really like how this story was structured. How we kind of started at the ending, and then we walk back through it. And I think through that we were off the jump, kind of pulled into the story. I think the beginning has a really great hook. And then overall, I really like just a lot of the prose and how we are moving throughout this person's day, while also only focusing on the most important things. So yeah, overall, I think a lot of the events that happen within this story are very unexpected, and toe the line of comical and very eerie. So I would say that this is definitely a must read. There are a lot of drawing factors that just makes this a pretty good read. So really good job.
Yeah. Like I said, I was laughing, but I was also horrified. The only thing I would criticize is just the "I want Honey's life" is a little, ham-fisted, but just that it doesn't like fit neatly. But I think that's also part of the ridiculousness of it. So it also works
because the phrase itself is so vague. Like every time I read it, I was like, "What is he talking about?"
Yeah.
And I honestly, even up to the very ending, I still never really got it, but I got the meaning of it. Like saying that I have Honey's life. So yeah, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Up next is by Captain Rhino with On Debate, or a treatise concerning the role of the magistrate and the citizen in regulating the discourse of men.
So this is an interesting piece. So this is and Captain Rhino kind of outlines the inspirations in comments afterwards. But this is a piece inspired by how a lot of old philosophers would sort of create, when they were trying to make a point, they would make up characters having a debate, and through that they would eventually come to their answer that you are supposed to take away from it. It's kind of like a Socratic method kind of thing, using these characters. So I think Socrates did it with Plato as a character, I think. And Captain Random specifically cites Galileo as doing that with a character that believes that the Earth revolves around the sun, and another character that believes the sun revolves around the Earth, and then another that is neutral. So in this one, we have three characters. We start off with our main two are Libertas and Fidus. I don't know exactly which ones these represent, but I almost think that Libertas kind of is almost like a libertarian viewpoint. And so Libertas is really trying to assert the point in this section that since at this point in the book, it's implied that there's a lot more context, a lot of stuff going on in the book other than these characters. So implying that because we have at this point proven that in this world that there is no God, or God cannot be cited as a place for morality, that therefore that all morality has to be like debated, right? And so Libertas is asserting that everything should be debatable, everything. And then Fidus is doing like a gentle pushing against it, and kind of summons another character, Caution, so kind of representing the idea of Caution. So Caution points out that they are sitting on Mount Privilege, and to look down at the bottom of the mountain and see how there's a lot of people that don't sit on the mountain of privilege, and ask the question of should these debates end poorly? Is it the people who are debating it that would suffer, or is it the people that are not on this mountain with us? And it is the people that are not in the mountain. And so Libertas kind of sort of accepts it, but basically says again that we still have to debate things either way. And then Caution says, I can't actually answer that question of like where to find morality if we are not debating everything, but I can only give caution. And then Libertas says, I despair of these fools. And so the point through this is that we go through this topic, we kind of weighs the pros and cons, and I think it's a pretty balanced viewpoint where caution does bring up a good point, and at the same time it also doesn't like provide a specific solution, and so we're left with the question in our heads of trying to answer that, and also how we sort of get characterization of these characters on just how they're talking. Like Libertas is a little bit arrogant, it seems like, and so we kind of think that he's a little bit of a dick, but he's also making good points. He's clearly like smart at the very least. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. I think my favorite thing about this story is this sort of back and forth debate that they are having, and how one point of view is not shown any more than the other. As you said, it's a very even debate all around. And yeah, I just really love these different viewpoints kind of clashing in this sort of very chilled, mediated way. And yeah, I think overall, as you said, the lines that each character does have is characterizing that character or that idea more so, even more. And yeah, I just think it is really well written, and it definitely asks a lot of the questions that it is impossible to really find any real answer to. But at the same time, I think asking these questions are very important. So yeah, just really great job at least bringing up these questions and kind of talking about them in a very well written. I guess you can call this a dialogue scene. But
yeah, I think it's something called. I think it might be called a Socratic dialogue. I think
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think that this story is very refreshing to see. It is far different than most other things that have been submitted to do the right thing, and I'm very glad that I was able to read it. So yeah, really great job.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
All right, up next is our last story for this week. But it is by Kamikaze Tomato with Bare Necessities.
So
the simple bare necessities.
This is a really, really funny story. I absolutely recommend going to read it. It's going to be less funny I think it actually would be still funny if you read it after we explain it, but you should go read it.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to summarize. So and I'm going to just say it now rather than later, but I think at the very beginning, Kamikaze Tomato was kind of figuring out what they were going to write, because the story definitely shifts over time of like what the focus of the joke is.
Yeah.
But we open here. You don't use a sword to fight a bear, because fighting bears, it means fighting them on the bear's terms. Because the great forest god once got drunk and proclaimed a holy edict: henceforth shall none bear arms against bears, save for that which bears are armed with. And then made it like a true fact of reality, which means that bears can only be killed by things that bears used to kill things.
Mm-hmm.
As in, basically, only bears can kill bears. So now all the bears are invincible, and death by aging or starvation are apparently weapons that bears don't have to kill other people, and so they can't die from those. So there's only a few ways to kill them. You could do, and the story for the most part is going through each of these options. You could wrestle them. This doesn't really work because they're stronger than you, even if you're a martial artist. Another option is to train bears to fight bears, which is possible. But
your own bear army.
Yeah, but the evil bears might team up against the trained bears. And also, there's always the case of bear defections, right? And they've, you just trained them, right? So they're like extra effective, right? Until they finally start the Bear Slayer Force, which our main character, Breger, it's a good name, was a trainee bear slayer, climbs into basically a bear mech that looks like a bear in every respect, to go out and fight bears, right? Which is a good time. I love this the little details that allude to a greater culture around just this conflict, including like plays and stuff around the bear slayers, including one where it's a tragedy where two bear slayers mistake each other for bears and they kill each other when they were actually romanced. They were lovers. It's really good. But here we see Gregor go on his day, do a little bit of a patrol. He finds a bear cub, and he's getting prepared to kill it, but he's really bad at it, and the bear cub tears open his suit, and he's like, "Oh shoot, what am I going to do now? My bear suit's destroyed. It might kill me because it's still invincible." But then it crawls in and like cuddles him, and he's like, "Okay, different new plan. Instead of killing this bear cub, and because I still would get in trouble because I, broke my bear suit, I'm going to get fired or suffer other consequences. I'm going to take this bear. I'm going to take it home. And then I'm going to raise it. And I'm going to train it to be a bear slayer and to act like a bear slayer suit in every way. And eventually, after 4 years, I'll be able to retire." So that's his whole plan, which is an interesting way to end the story.
Very. I really love, especially the second half of this story. I think this story does such a great job of just creating so much world building from this event that you would think would be pretty small, but actually is a very crucial issue that changes this entire society. And I think this story is filled with so many fun moments. When you're going through all of the different ways on how they've tried to kill bears, to where it gets to this point of absurdity where, like, as you said, they are in these bear mechs, like Zero Suit Gundam-esque mechs, that are being used all to kill these bears. So yeah, I think this story has a fantastic tone to it. I think the world building is very well done, and I think at the very end, when we do get a main character and we sort of walk with them through their day, it definitely makes this sort of world that is being built feel so much more real, in a sense, since we have a pair of eyes to kind of look through. And I think the very ending is funny and hilarious, and I'm excited to see if this 4-year plan really works out as Gregor wants it to. So yeah, I would say this is definitely a must read if you want to laugh and just read a very fun and fantastically written story. So fantastic job, Kamikaze Tomato.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I really enjoyed reading this. I really did enjoy those little details that alluded to so much more. There was another one that mentioned how this particular area was mostly emptied because most of the bears had like joined the roaming bear gyres, which is such a great like. So I assume that basically means like the hordes of bears. Like there's just giant hordes. There's a lot of implication there, and it was really really entertaining.
Exactly. And quickly while reading it, I realized that this would be the absolute worst world to live in. Like, all right, so thank you so much to everyone who did submit this week. We wish we could talk about all of y'all, but we cannot, for I have homework due in 10 hours. But we would love to give a good old-fashioned do the right thing shout out to everyone who did submit a story this week. So thank you very much to Ace of Sword.
Thank you to Sarah Penguin.
Thank you, Stop Stealing My Gmail,
which is a great username and a new writer. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you to Sensei Sama Senpai, another new writer and also a great username. Thanks for submitting.
Thank you, Captain Rhino.
Thank you, M. Rees.
Thank you, Kamikaze Tomato.
Thank you to Sithril.
Thank you, Yeti Mancer Quest.
And thank you so much to Haunt of the Heron.
And also, we will love to give a great thank you to all those who did leave comments. Leaving comments not only helps you figure out what worked and didn't work within your own story, but you are providing someone else, another amateur writer, with crucial feedback that can, in turn, make their writing so much better. So thank you very much to Haunt of the Heron, Yeti Mancer Crest, Sithril, Captain Rhino, and Kamikaze Tomato. Thank you so much for leaving comments.
Yeah, y'all are doing such a great job leaving comments. It's so satisfying to go into the comments and see like a really high number of total comments and then like a much less number of like submitted stories. And I know that sounds weird, but like it's satisfying to see that ratio, you know? And to see that there's a back and forth. There was some where I saw that it was like multiple, like a whole thread of like, 6 comments back and forth, a conversation. And I really appreciate that y'all are doing that. And I hope that you guys are enjoying getting comments on your own stories. That's awesome. Keep it up, please.
If you want to be like all of these wonderful writers and submit your story to Do the Right Thing, you can do that by going to /r/Do the Right Thing and posting your story within that week. All you have to do is sit down for 30 minutes and write a complete short story using 3 of 4 words for that week.
That's right. If you want to find out the words as soon as they come out, the best way to do that is to follow us on Twitter, or also if you do the Patreon and the Discord, I always post it there too, so that's not a bad place either. Just saying. If you don't have a Reddit account and you want to send us a story, or just let us know what you think of stuff, I'm starting to probably post discussion threads consistently. Probably we'll see. I'm so bad about consistency. I need to figure something out to just solve that part of my personality. But anyway, you can send us an email at rightthingcast@gmail.com, or you can follow us on Twitter, which is @rightthingcast.
Exactly. And if you want to support us and all of the wonderful things that are going on in Doof Media, you can do that by going to the Doof Media Patreon. All you have to do is donate $1 or more per month, and you will get access to the Doof Media Discord, which is filled with wonderful people looking for a fantastic conversation. And if you decide to donate $10 or more per month, you get access to special bonus episodes, including one that me and Matthias did talking about Modico Magica.
That's right. I've been saying it's going to come out for a really long time. I'm going to do it tonight. I promise.
Oh,
it's coming out Monday morning, the same time that this episode is out. You can find it on Patreon. I promise.
All right.
I think.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
I think you should. I think I deserve consequences if I don't. So
right.
I I think that would be fair.
So Matthias, would you mind telling me what's going on in Doof Media right now?
Yeah, so this week is actually the Doof Game Club coming out on this Saturday. So if you have not ever participated in the Game Club, you can show up to the live stream discussion and leave your comments, and Elliot and Ruben will respond to them as you say them. This month we are covering Slay the Spire, which is a roguelike card-based dungeon crawler. I think is kind of a sort of summary of it, and I've heard it's very good. It actually has a reference to Worm in it, which was a big deal when we first found that out. So there's a little bit of a connection there. Speaking of Worm, this week is the final overview episode of Decomposing Worm. So after this Friday, Clarence will have read all of Worm, and I will have read all of Worm for the fifth time. I think.
Like seventh time.
Too many times. I should stop reading the same book over and over. Yeah, so that's actually like a really big deal. And I'm very excited to do that. I have almost finished reading that myself, and it's a wild ride. Worm still holds up. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I can't believe it's so close to ending. Just that episode, and then one more Perspectives episode after that. And that's the show. So,
wow.
If you haven't caught up in a while, now's a pretty good time to do that.
Mm-hmm. And maybe I should start rereading Worm.
I think at this point you should just skip and go to Pale. I think you should just do that.
So you think it's too late for me, basically?
I think so.
Wow. I mean, yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and get into next week's words, which are pace, separate, stroke, and visual.
All right. So pace, as in to set the pace, as in the rate at which usually someone walks, but it can be the rate of really anything.
7 paces left, 2 paces up.
Yeah, paces is also a word for steps. I think that's probably all the definitions there. Separate, which is in like the verb to separate two things, or two people can be separated, or are separate objects. Stroke, as in like to have a stroke, like a heat stroke, or as in the motion, as in to stroke something. Preferably only using it in like the petting sense. Thank you. But also like a golf stroke, or the stroke of an oar, I think is also a term. So you got a lot of options there. In visual, as in the what you see, usually on either like a heads-up display, or like just what is within your visual. So a lot of options here. These are some pretty broad words where they don't have like a ton of alternate meanings, but I think that you can use them fairly easily. So yeah, what's the story you're going to write next week, Jarvis?
I haven't had time to think about it, but the story that I'm going to write next week is going to be a classic pirating adventure. We will follow the olive-skinned pirate Black Hair, who is famously
known
known
intimidating
for having,
name.
Yes, who is famously known for having long black streaks of hair that he would lock old tobacco into and light it on fire to give himself this otherworldly look. But you see, the sad thing is that this great pirate ship was overtaken, and he was forced with him and his 2 best men into a dinghy. So they sailed off, making sure to use the largest oar strokes possible to get there as fast as they could. But then, above on the horizon, they got visual of Skull Island. And if we know anything about Skull Island, is that whatever lies there, which could be treasure or goodies, is heavily guarded by a 50-plus foot gorilla man. So of course, Black Hair, being the most confident sailor in the high seas, decided to land there and follow and followed this very poorly written map that he managed to grab from his ship before they were forced out of it. And the map stated 27 paces past the main head of Skull Island, 2 paces left and 17 right. So they followed it slowly but surely up until they found this massive separation between North Skull Island and South Skull Island. And there, hidden deep within those waters, would be treasure beyond their wildest dreams. But the issue, or the curse of this island, is that 3 may enter the waters for treasure, but only 2, most of the time 1, will ever come out to reap their spoils.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So, what hopefully better story are you going to write next week?
So there's this guy, and he's actually pretty old. He's like 70 years old, and he's having heart problems, right? And so he eventually, went to the doctor after a pretty close heart attack scare. He went to the doctor, and they decided that the best way to go forward would be to give him a pacemaker. And so there was a big surgery. They gave him this experimental pacemaker that is supposed to integrate with his nervous system much deeper than anything else. And so it worked pretty well at first. But then, as he was on his way to the grocery store, his sight, everything in his visual kind of seemed to split. He was seeing double, but not just double, seeing kind of different versions of each one, almost as if like he was seeing like a mirror dimension. And so his vision continued to separate, and he thought he was having a stroke, but it turns out he was just going full cyborg. And because the soul of the pacemaker, which had the soul of an AI inside of it was integrating with his body, and so he could see both the physical realm and the cyber realm of the world. And he like saw the Wi-Fi in the air, and he became a cyborg 70-year-old man, and he solved crimes and figured out how social media works, which is really different in the future. We don't use likes anymore. It's more the connotation of spitting on people. That's the main button you click. It's not called spit. It's usually called something like kick or something, but it's kind of like the same connotation as like spitting in someone's face. In the insulting way specifically. And so he's kind of just figuring that out and solving crimes, and kind of just being like a cool guy.
Wow. I think you just made like the better Upgrade movie. So that was fantastic.
This is the better Inspector Gadget.
Yeah. Oh, I miss Inspector Gadget so much. Honestly, I really think we should do a Do the Right Thing special when we only do Inspector Gadget fanfic. That would be fantastic.
That's a good idea. In fact, I think we should just because there's just so much to explore there, I feel like we should keep going it for like a month at least, like 4 different episodes, just on different aspects of Inspector Gadget. We can focus on the science fiction aspects. We can focus on the more the character aspects of Inspector. The true
villains,
the core
Dr.
themes. That just like the struggles that Inspector Gadget faces. I think between all of that, we might come out the other side doing the right thing.
Ooh, doing the right thing, huh?
No.
Oh.
Yeah.